Suneater is the modern epic space opera.
Because the way that was visualized.
Yeah.
Oh.
Not everyone deserves your opinion is a good thing to live by. By the way, that's cinema. I need that on like I need that on film.
Welcome back to another To the Ramble episode. I'm one of your hosts, Austin.
And I'm Richard.
What happened to I'm the other host, Richard? They need to know you're also hosting this. You're not being interviewed. You're not.
You're hosting. I'm a guest today.
with Suneater of all book series. No, this is where you must take control.
That is fair. That is not emblematic of how I feel about the book. I very much enjoy.
It's just how you feel about me. Don't get it twisted.
Very key.
This is book 5 of Suneater, Ashes of Man. Before we even spoil book 5, we'll give you spoiler warnings. We're gonna just talk to the person out there who's clicking on a random video of ours and doesn't even know what Suneater is. Suneater, book 1. Why should people read this series? Why are we now doing the 5th book review on this channel? Compel them.
Because Suneater is the modern epic space opera. That's it. If you were reading Red Rising and you're going, man, I love this action, I love the space opera, but I kind of want more drama and operatic epicness. Suneater. Over and over and over. The characters are wonderfully dynamic. You just get sucked into their world. The world building is fantastic. All of these elements make Suneater amazing. Personally, I know people don't like our takes on Name of the Wind. All of my complaints and positives about Name of the Wind, this is the series that has Prose on level of Patrick Rothfuss, but with characters and plots I actually enjoy. So, be that as it may, go read it. It's amazing.
Great pitch, Rich. That's a great pitch of the series. And even if you go into book 1 and you read Empire Silence, don't like it, I didn't like it, and every book after that is incredible. So don't get let down by book 1. Give it a shot if that sounds up your alley. But now we're done talking to you people. We now need to move on to the people that it's book 5 of Ashes.
It's book 5.
Ashes Man.
Come on.
No spoilers yet. We are going to now recap up to book 4, Kingdoms of Death, of where did we leave off? What did Kingdoms of Death? What happened in Kingdoms of Death? And where do we start in this book without getting too into it yet?
Yeah, so we left off with Kingdoms of Death.
It is hard to say.
I know. Kingdoms of Death ended with a little bit of a hopeful tone, which I mean, a grim book, lot of death, by the title, of course. So Hadrian has lost his entire Red Company. He's lost all of his friends except for Lorien and Valka. That's it. That's all he has in the world.
Ilax, Krim, everybody.
Yeah. They're all gone. They're all gone. So, Hadrian, at the very end of Kingdoms of Death, he gets to see Gibson one last time and spend the last couple of years of Gibson's life with him in an attempt to kind of process and develop further past the trauma he experienced under Doryaika. And beautiful moment, beautiful scene. Really enjoyed that ending. We get wrapped up. I mean, that's the ending of that book.
Yeah, basically. Siren, one of his company that didn't move on with him to go with the Red Company and all of the 90,000 that died. Siren stayed behind on Colchist and helped Gibson stay in the sanctuary to wait and cryo freeze until Hadrian could see him. And Gibson says a secret at the end, goes, oh, something about his son, some mystery that Hadrian goes, who is this man? Who is this man I've looked up to my whole life? Who? Oh. So we got a lot of heavy stuff in the last book. And for those of you who don't know, Kingdoms of Death and Ashes of Man was originally one long book. It was originally one book that Chris Verrocchio wrote, but then the publisher said to condense it, to make it into 2 books because it wouldn't print well. He wasn't Sanderson, so he couldn't just have a long chunker like that. So it was split into 2 different books. And that's why the start of this one, again, this is spoiler free, just beginning of the book. The very first page, it's not another time jump, which we get from every other from every other Suneater book. There's always a massive time jump of decades, and we're going, well, okay, who are all these new characters? This one, page 1, it's the next day.
Yeah.
You're still on Colchist. He's fresh off of just seeing Gibson die, and that's where the book starts. People going in, what should they expect? How'd you like the book? Let's ask that too. What did you give it out of 5 stars for your spoiler-free rating?
Overall, I gave this book a 4.25. Really good.
Really great.
Really great. Yes.
Oh, can't get our system wrong. Oh, I'm
Can't get our system.
Well, I gave the book a 4.25 stars. Really great book. I promise we don't talk about a rating beforehand. This is we do not.
No, but I'm glad you're also correct.
I'm glad you're also correct. What's really great about this, so I think, then we'll probably both agree. Here's my ranking for the series so far. Well, we differ on our 1 and 2s and whatnot, but I think agree where this goes. I'd go Howling Dark, Demon in White, Kingdoms of Death, Ashes of Man, Empire of Silence. I would put this one, and while I say that,
it's a distant 4th.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's 4th in my ranking of the series so far, but it is much closer to 3rd than it is to 5.
Yep.
If that makes sense. Like,
yes.
That's yes. I don't want to demean this book's quality that heavily.
I had just as much of a good time with this. Now, this book is really great. I think it continues to do everything that we love with Suneater. Mm-hmm. You could sometimes feel, okay, this was a part of a bigger book. You get that feeling at times?
Yeah, compared to book 4, which I think it felt like a complete novel.
Yeah.
Of book 4, if no one told me, I would say, oh yeah, that's one novel. That isn't part 1 of a 2-book. I couldn't feel it was cut in half. This book, I could feel it. I definitely could tell. Just the style is like, okay. I understand now how this was just the second half of Kingdoms of Death.
I was watching Daniel Green's review, and he made a great point about this book. I think he reviewed this even before the next book was out, so he was reviewing these at that time, and he made a great point about this is the most straightforward of the Suneater books yet. Yeah. What he appreciated about it, and what I appreciate, is with each Suneater book, there's so much to it that you go, okay, people can theorize. You finish the book, and you just have a lot to talk about. There's a lot to talk about, but it was very straightforward, and you don't feel with this one as though you got to go deep into every page as you do with the prior books. I thought that was a good point to make of this was straightforward, which again is not a bad thing about this book. It was
just a change of pace, change for the series.
Yeah.
And I imagine next book will be also different.
Yeah.
Like I would imagine, but who knows? We haven't gotten to book 7 yet, or sorry,
book 6 yet.
Book 6 yet.
Disquiet guys, we're gonna do Dregs before. Everybody's been telling us to read Dregs of an Empire, I think it's called, before doing book 6. Other thing though, I agree. So one of our patrons, Henry, shout out Henry, he said he enjoyed the additional side characters in this more than the previous ones, which I totally agree, because Henry and I were talking about how Kingdoms of Death had some of you might think this, but in Kingdoms of Death, the death of the side characters made me realize I wasn't as attached to them. I'm attached to Hadrian. But the side characters introduced in this book that you'll see are some of my favorite yet. I think some of the side characters and the more characterization we get from some characters that get more prominent in this book, very cool. So I liked that. And there's also, the world's still top tier. The prose is still top tier. Everything's awesome. I just want to preface the rest of this review where if we ever sound negative, it's just because we're comparing it to the other books we love just as much.
Yeah.
And this is positive. This is a very positive review.
This is all very positive. And at a certain point, we're just nitpicking and comparing greatness to other greatness. Mm-hmm. So, take that what you will.
If you want to join our Patreon, link in the description below, as long as with the affiliate link of the books, if you want to help and support us out. But before, I guess that's all we got then, Rich. Anything you want to say before we get into spoiler warning?
Before spoilers, no, just read the series. You're good.
All right. Spoiler warning. All right, Ashes of Man time. Time to click off if you don't want spoilers. And emotional impact. What'd you give it out of 5 stars?
I give this one a 4.5.
Spectacular. Nice.
Spectacular. The ending really nailed it home. If it wasn't for the ending, I'd probably be a lot closer to, 4.25 or 4. But the ending just nailed everything for me on an emotional beat. It was raw. I loved that.
I gave 4.25. Really great. And the best part, the most emotional I got out loud was the Emperor scene, of course. The Emperor slap.
Oh, yeah.
That ending. I think the forum and the politicking, Jared Henderson was saying this too when we were chatting, and Jared was saying how he likes the forum and the politicking more than anything in the series. I love that stuff.
Yeah. I mean, yes and no. Part of me is looking at the forum and looking at the politicking of the Empire and going, man, how is the Empire surviving? Because the people that come closest to killing the half-mortal Hadrian Marlowe is not really Cielson. It's his own people. It's like, Jesus, like, the guy's doing the best he can.
And whiny Alexander out of all of them.
The amount you just keep wanting to hate Alexander. It's great. But no, I loved everything with the Emperor as well. His is a character that's developed spectacularly over this book. You always see great glimpses of him. He's kind of the man on the hill, and he's supposed to be a little bit more mysterious. But in this book, I think my first kind of emotional outburst of like really super intrigued is the secret clandestine meeting between the Emperor and Hadrian, the first one. That was thrilling. Of just it's always enjoyable to see Hadrian like be really reserved about his secrets and the connections between him and the Quiet, and having to tell someone like, no, actually the legends are true. I am like, I have died and come back to life. And so him finally telling the Emperor, kind of, not completely. I don't think he revealed that story, but like, no, I did meet the Quiet. I have seen visions. Like, I am like the God Emperor of old. So like, God Emperor of Earth, not 40K thing, whatever, it's fine. Still, that was the thrilling stuff. Everything with the Emperor after that is also amazing.
This book could be described as the Emperor's book in many ways. If you were to describe the plot of this, it starts with Emperor tossing around Hadrian again of go do another thing for me, and ends with Hadrian finally having enough because he insults Valka. The Emperor insults Valka and gets a big ol' slapping. And in that scene, did you feel relief of, oh, finally, finally? Or were you going, uh-oh, this is not good?
Quite a bit of both.
Both of them, yeah.
Yeah, because you see that, and like, one, I would think the Emperor is a lot smarter than to insult Valka. At a certain point, like, Hadrian is important enough that, like, I would think that he would know. He clearly sees how much Valka means to him, and to call her it's just a Tavrosi. What do you think? What do you think he's gonna do? Like, the Emperor already sees guys on the edge. I just need to get past this. Like, we need time. Like, clearly this was too soon.
You think he was planning that?
I don't think so, because I think the Emperor was trying to push stuff under the rug, trying to bring Hadrian in the fold. He is a very useful tool. He knows that he has powers of the God Emperor. He wanted to just like, all right, everyone kind of saw you do some freaky voodoo magic and you killed someone through a television screen. So
talk about that scene where he kills, sorry for getting the names wrong, Aitavasa, Vayaden Aitavasa. Did we get that right?
Which, by the way, that's cinema. I need that on, like, I need that on film. Just it's the silence. It's the wonderful silence, just looking at him, point, glass cracks behind him and sucked out. Just, woo!
It's
so good.
It's the thing Suneater does so well, those big, oh yeah, I'm a god type scene of surviving the ray from space in book 3, or shooting himself in book 3.
Yeah.
And book 4, Kingdoms of Death, him just spawning a blade.
his other self giving him another blade. It's great.
Yeah. Was that your biggest moment?
Yeah, of course. That's the biggest hype moment.
Yes.
But plenty of other great stuff. But no, emotionally speaking, everything with the Emperor is thrilling. Honestly, everything with Alexander was also tense.
I think
the relationship between Hadrian and Alexander is enjoyable, to say the least. Like, especially Hadrian knowing that Alexander sees him as the enemy and always having to walk on eggshells around him. But because Hadrian is so old at this point and everyone that he knows, nearly all of his friends and everyone that he has a positive relationship is dead, he can still remember the moderately good times, like some kind of, like, not paternal, but, you know, teacher and mentor relationship with Alexander. And also it's a reminder of his failure being a teacher. Like, he failed. He failed Alexander greatly. So
I did.
It's that moment of, like, he doesn't, he's a much older man now. He doesn't try to hold the resentment. He understands the position the prince is in. And so he tries to be kind to me. He's really just trying his best. And it's just all the worse when Alexander just twists the knife again. It's like,
comes groveling for his help and then turns around. And
yeah.
I did like the relationship with Hadrian and Lysander Lynn a lot more in this book. And also with
Lysander Lynn is amazing.
The new standout side character, Hector Oliva. Or Oliva, I believe that's how you say his last name, but Hector.
Olivia?
Olivia. Is it Olivia or Oliva? One of the two. But Hector. And we'll save that stuff for characters with emotion. So I loved all the forum stuff. Like you said, that big scene of the emperor talking behind closed doors, and then at the end, the emperor slap. Of course, you have the battle on Perfugium. Is that name right? Double check. So. Okay. You have the battle there as well. The big destroy moment. Yeah, you guys.
We're also not talking about. We're kind of dancing around the big emotional thread through this whole book.
I was leaning into that one. Yeah. Yeah. Valka. Now, I will say, that's the one emotional beat that disappointed me more so than the other ones.
Is it because it was, like, you know it's coming from, like, the beginning of the book, basically?
It was very what's the word I always look for and can't get? When you see a punch and it's telegraphed. That's it was definitely very telegraphed. The two big things that stuck in my mind was the one scene where Valka switches him and goes, you know what, maybe I do want to have a kid. Or the other
that's
scene
the one that's
where Valka and him are talking about, after this battle, we're going to leave and go home. It was so telegraphed that I was going, no, surely she's not going to die then, because Rockio did a top tier job in, for example, Howling Dark of just, wait, his head's chopped off? What the
But he's telling the story.
How does that happen? Just complete twist and does not see it coming. But with the Valka death, of course, you could presume he's telling this story. He destroys his son. You know that's the ending. So Valka probably doesn't make it. You're thinking that, obviously, after Kingdoms of Death, too. So it's not that I didn't expect her to die, but how telegraphed it was. The emotional gut punch wasn't as there as if it was more sudden. And
see, I think Rockio was going for the route of, he knows he can't get a sudden death gut punch for this book, and it's not going to work. The fact that Valka's death, like, it's kind of been teased for a while, and especially there's a certain moment where I like that the whole chapter is Hadrian talking about Perfugium and going, like, this has been the hardest chapter. I've rewritten my story several times so that I could go back to avoid writing this. This is the hardest. I knew I had to write this part, and this is the hardest it's ever been for me. Like, like, from there on, it's like, yeah, Valka's going to die. But it's just built up. The emotional weight that hit me is just seeing the culmination of the relationship, of how close they've been, how well they know each other, how much they've suffered together, how everything along those lines and all the moments they have together really drive home the moments when he does lose her. And instead of this kind of grandiose act of, her dying in his arms or anything like that, of just kind of drawn out, it's just, she's gone on a computer screen. And that's it.
Yep.
Just, that's all. And it's a moment that's, maybe it's not the sudden gut punch, but it's just the slow dread that you feel that, like, by the time I was there with Hadrian, of, like, you have enough experience with them together that you feel how much he loved her and how much without her his life really is to him almost meaningless. That he was willing to give up everything for her, and just now she's gone.
Yeah, I think that's where this book hurts more from it being split in two, because in the last book we had a lot of slow burn and dread, and oh God, once he's getting tortured endlessly and loses all of his friends. It was another one of those type of scenes, it being split into this one. It was a drag onto the prior books emotional gut punch as well of the oh dear God, Hadrian, this sucks.
If the scale is like,
yeah,
Hadrian out of Demon and White is kind of at the top of his game so far.
Mm-hmm.
And then Kingdom of Death brings him down all the way. And then the ending of Kingdom of Death does bring him up a little bit. Like it's an upward trajectory of like him with Gibson, like, okay. And then back down all the way. Like, oh, I didn't know this floor could go lower. And then it goes.
And then Best Boy Lorien takes one for the team and goes, I got you, Hadrian, and bumps up slightly.
Not much, but like
the teeter-totter goes, eh. That's it.
Well, you finally have a feeling of, okay, I think we've reached the bottom. I don't think Rockio can take anything else away from our boy. At this point, like, even if Lorien dies, it's going to be like, yeah, sure, another one. Why not?
Screw I destroyed 3 sons at this point. I don't give a shit.
In for a penny, in for a pound. I mean, everyone else has died. Why shouldn't I lose my last friend?
This is something that we will be very curious to theorize after we finish Disquiet Gods, because we're going in with not all the information yet for the finale. Now, I also want to talk in world building about the quiet powers, what's happening with him being disconnected. We'll save that discussion. However, I'm so fascinated. I'm just so curious how the moral dilemma Rockio is going to set up for destroying the sun, because we get introduced to now there's a cancer virus going around, the cancer that the Minos and extraterrestrials are going to pass around, which little Red Rising stuff too. I see why the series get compared. Do you see what I mean? Mm-hmm. But so there's that. There's also the Quiet's connection with him being disconnected yet connecting when he needs it to, and that combination of things.
It starts bringing into question of in book 3 you seem to have it. At least it reads like Hadrian is starting to gain a certain level of control over his powers, and it's no longer the Quiet; it's him doing it. And this book is making me question that. Like, did the Quiet just kind of let him think he controlled it?
The big question I have, and I'm curious, not what you because we'll theorize next book, but seeing how Hadrian's lost everything, Valka's dead, everybody he loves dead. The dilemma to either destroy the sun or not. I guess I'm crossing my fingers going, I hope it's not simple. I hope it's not too justified.
I'm currently sitting here like,
because how do you, because I'm guessing it's do the ends justify the means type of question at the end there of does destroying the sun.
I'm a firm believer, like generally, especially in reality and on our Earth, that the ends do not always justify the means. Like, to what end? If there is never an end, then all you have is means. That's all that matters. However, Rockio has set up a great situation here, but ultimately, I don't see an option beyond what Hadrian does. I'm currently sitting here on pro blow up sun, like whatever it takes. This is extinction level event. You have if there's no other way to end the Cielson, you gotta take it. Now, I don't see how you don't take that.
Now I'm guessing that sun he destroys, it's also millions or billions of humans also probably die in the solar system, whatever the cost is. So we'll see what that is. But
that's huge.
You get
but
my
also
question of
billions are already dying. What else?
The trolley problem. Do you pull it? Do you pull the trolley? That's a question I'm having now, because seeing how he's also lost Valka, of what is this Quiet Guy's going to bring us? So that we know he goes with Sir Oloran and the Jadians, and I can't wait for the world building there to figure out more about them.
I'm very happy to move away from the Empire for a little bit.
Yes, I'm also very happy to move away, because Kingdoms of Death and Ashes of Man did. If you look at just Kingdoms of Death, you're correct. It feels like one complete book, but the two of them feels like one very long book too. Mm-hmm. So now I'm ready for a change of pace to see, okay, what's Hadrian do now? And that emotional impact, really great stuff. I think. How did Valka death impact you? Did you feel? Did you cry at all?
I got a little misty. I knew it was coming, but I felt the dread along with Hadrian.
That's fair.
Because again, I wasn't feeling it with I was connected to past Hadrian, but I appreciated all the present day whatever, however you want to contextualize it. Him setting it up that I was with him of like, it felt like a very old wound, and that him having to relive it, like I felt the dread along with him.
Nice.
So I liked how that was set up, and so I felt the emotional punch really well, because for the past several books, I've been loving the relationship between Vulcan and Hadrian. It's a great romance, and at a certain point, like at this point, they're an old married couple. That's just how connected they are, and so it's just so tragic for them to lose. There's also just a great quote pretty early on in the book that I will share now of like what I like about Hadrian and Vulca.
Yeah.
Hadrian is talking to Hector, and Hector's going like, yeah, I'm a soldier. I'm basically a sailor. Like there's no way for me to have like a singular relationship. So I'm just, a woman in every port. I'm a lover of women, great women. And so anyway, and Hadrian explains to him, just says, so basically telling Hector of like, there is value in having one. There is value in having a singular partner rather than just constant flings. And he explains to Hector, but there are women and women, Commander. Some ask nothing of us, and so we are nothing to them. But there are those women who ask all of us. Those are the ones worth giving all for. And Hadrian certainly gave his all. And so carry that through the whole book. I felt it when she died.
And Hector and being introduced to this book and Hadrian's relationship, so cool to see. The battle they had, and you see Hadrian lose. Oh, yeah. And he's obviously from being tortured for, 7 years plus a decade almost.
Muscles basically don't have the same muscle memory.
Yeah.
He's now just significantly older. He doesn't have his quiet powers to rely on anymore for combat, so...
I liked a little bit of change of pace where there wasn't a time jump and we just got right into it. I expect there to be a time jump with the Jadians and in the next book because it's set up to be so.
I do hope tonally that now that we've reached a floor, I do want to see the grow back or like the trajectory, either seeing Hadrian get at least a part of his Demon in White status back, or just abilities and skills and kind of grow and like build himself back up, or something. I hope he just doesn't stay, and that the rest of the book he's also just kind of average or fine. I'm hoping he dynamically changes in some way. Yeah. Like either he goes a different avenue, like he gives up the sword and is like, okay, I'm not going to be the same sword fighter I am anymore. I'm going to go a different direction. Or he builds himself back up. I imagine they're going to go that route. But
that the status of Hadrian, the mythos of Hadrian, I think is one of the themes of this. But do you want to go into thought-provoking this?
Yeah.
I gave it a 4-star. Great.
Yeah, I gave it a 4.25.
Really great for you. That bringing up that first theme, the mythos and the legend of Hadrian Marlowe that you see dispersing across the galaxy. That's one of the main themes here. That continues from the prior books, obviously, but this one stuck out the most. You felt it the most of how different. It's interesting that in Demon in White, the legends were closest to being true of like, no, he literally is a living legend. Like he is that, and he has to hide it. But this book is, the legend has grown to its greatest height, but also this is the point where Hadrian is furthest from his own legend. And so it is, yes, the legend is true. A lot of these stories are true. He has come back from the dead. He has won all these impossible battles. But the Hadrian that is alive today is no longer that legend. And you just feel it, and it's painful for Hadrian, and then also us as a reader of like, you feel it. And then you are introduced to Hector, who is this legend that we should know as the readers in this world of Suneater. And he goes, hey, reader, I didn't know at the time that Hector would go on to become one of the Hector that you know. This hero, this legend. And you see how...
Great piece of world building, huh? Oh, yeah. I loved that.
Oh, yeah, that was awesome. And so you see this mythos, this legend of different characters of Hadrian meeting another legend in the world. Super cool. But that's just one of the themes. Did you get anything else big from this one other than a continuation from Kingdoms of Death, a continuation from the prior books?
I mean, the big one was love and
Yep.
the connections that, love bringing purpose, meaning what does it actually mean? What does that connection hold over us? You see throughout this book in particular that when Hadrian is at his lowest, it is his love for Valka that does carry him through. It gives him the strength for the decision to run away from the emperor and how much he's being hounded. It gives him the strength to stand and fight. And then when it is gone and taken away, it is the biggest blow to his own psyche, more so than even the torture at the hands of Doriaika. So, I mean, that love and how important it is and how much of a motivating factor it is for us as people is definitely a big theme of this book.
Did you think that loss and love, I guess how it ended with Kingdoms of Death versus the end of this book, did you get a different take from it? Because the end of Kingdoms of Death was a lot of loss. Ooh, some hope. Valka's still alive. This book, did you feel more despair?
Oh, sure.
Because even though more death happened in the prior book?
Yeah. It was the last thread.
Yeah.
Where, yes, Hadrian lost all of his friends, all of his would-be family, but he still had his lady love, his paramour. Mm-hmm. And now he was already suffering the idea, like, it wasn't just Valka, but throughout this book he was realizing how much the emperor was just dogging him, of really he can't keep it going. He's not the same man he was. He can't keep the emperor. He knows that the emperor is going to work him to death and ultimately die pointlessly. And so he decides he has the strength to leave with Valka. And at the end of the book, he does leave, but it wasn't at his own strength.
Yep.
He was dragged away from the emperor's chains.
Literally, yeah. I think you know those are the big ones from this. I think from the prior books, this was less thought-provoking than the prior books because this felt a continuation of the themes we've already dealt with. So I don't think, other than what was mentioned, that this one handles anything different. And generally with a series, it's just going to keep adding on to the big theme of the book regardless. But I couldn't pick up on anything too nuanced other than that. I
will add a little nugget to the idea of the Half-Mortal's legend and its influence around it. So something that Rocchio has talked about with us in interviews and other things before is the importance of like heroic figures. Like us as humans, we need heroes, like historical, fictional, or otherwise. Like heroes are important to have in the human's life story. It's what we use to compare, like, in our darker moments, in our moments of question, we ask, like, what would this hero do? Yeah. And then you do it. For a little fun aside of, there is an anime called Frieren the Slayer. We watched a little bit of it. There is kind of a phenomenon, or at least it was, I don't know how much of a thing it is nowadays, but there's some fun stories out in Japan about the character Himmel. It is a meme of what would Himmel do. Himmel was the great hero that killed the demon lord in Frieren. And there are kids where the kids don't want to do the homework. And the parents ask the kid, what would Himmel do? And the kid's like, Himmel would do his homework. And they do his homework because Himmel is so noble and grand. And so you just think to yourself, what would Himmel do? And there was a story of where there was a person assaulting someone on a subway there in Japan as well. And this kid stepped in and defended this person and beat off the attacker. And the interviewer was like, oh, what made you step up and defend this person? He's like, well, in that moment, I asked myself, what would Himmel do? And Himmel would protect you. It's that kind of stuff that is important for our stories. So, apply that to this book. We have little moments of how his legend has influenced stuff in both negative ways of Hadrian with the Red Company. He had this trust and familiarity. They the people of the Red Company knew that Hadrian was the half-mortal. At least a lot of them, or most of them did. And so they trust him completely, and there was this great trust they have, and so they could lean on each other. And then in this book, he's with Commander Sharp and the other person below him, and there's a moment when they're invading the extrasolarian base, and Valka use her Tavrosi magic to hack the doors, and basically the robots don't actually attack Hadrian. They want to keep him alive. And the commander under Sharp is going like, who the hell are you? Like, why didn't they attack you? How is she opening the doors? Are you guys spies? Like, you guys led us into a trap, and like almost kills Hadrian. And it's because that guy doesn't know he doesn't know the person behind the legend, and is now a doubter, and he doesn't have the experience with it. And so there's conflicting images of the man and the legend. And then you have the emperor, probably the better example of, there's the line that someone said, the emperor told him, like, why is the emperor staying behind to save all of these people in the crash? Why isn't he running away?
Yeah.
And someone said, like, that the emperor told him, like, it's what he would do, and meaning Hadrian. And it's like, so the emperor is taking moral lessons and taking courage from the legend of Hadrian Marlowe. Mm-hmm. Even the emperor needs a hero.
Yeah.
And now ask how he treats that hero afterward. Like, fine, we'll get around that. But that's the importance of it, of everyone, even a king, needs a hero.
That's great. And connecting that with this legend, whether he is currently that legend or not, still the idea of that person is meaningful to the populace, is meaningful to build courage, to be prudent about something. In our world, people say, what would Jesus do?
Yep.
And I'm sure Rocky would say that too. What would Jesus do? And then Hadrian's becoming this religious figure, maybe to some, but he's becoming this mysterious, and the way the emperor now knows from that scene in that private room of, he is as connected to the quiet as the first king. Was it William? I believe was the first ever emperor, but the first emperor who fought back against the AI and the machines, the Americani. He's the William again. He's returned. Oh my God! And so it's even the emperor seeing it that way. That's a great connection to make. And this book, more than the previous, shows that clearly. And I would say this isn't spoiling anything, but the thing that Name of the Wind does for people that like the book talks about the legend you make of yourself and how true is the narrative, all that kind of stuff, which I think
story of stories,
the story
and the story you tell about yourself.
Yes, exactly.
But now, the enemies in this book definitely also know that idea so much as well.
Yes.
People talking about, like, why is Doriaika not just destroying the planet? Like, they definitely could. They could kill the emperor right now. But Hadrian tells everyone in the council room, like, no, killing the emperor, like, sure, there's going to be another emperor. They want to kill the symbol. They want to kill the idea of an emperor. Mm-hmm. If they humiliate him, if they parade him around, if they use him as a footstool, and they broadcast that everywhere, it doesn't matter who they put on the solar throne. The idea of the emperor is dead. Who would want to be the emperor? Two, who would look to the emperor with any kind of reverence or leadership when the last guy was so humiliated? Mm-hmm. And the same goes for the half-mortal. Like, the Cielsen know the power that Hadrian's legend is, both among the Cielsen as a people, and that's why Hadrian was brought there to show the other Cielsen that Doriaika is the king of all.
Doriaika had to establish what we call today is that alpha energy.
Yeah, he had to establish the the sigma male energy,
the
giga Chad. Yeah, sure.
He was doing his best, and so that's one way to dumb down these incredibly thematic elements of Rockio's doing it. And on top of this wasn't this book, but Kingdoms of Death, the last book. I'll bring this up again in Disquiet Gods, most likely, because I was learning about this as I was reading this book. But the belief of the belief of the Cielsen having Gnostic beliefs of hating the material world. And I was just kind of going onto a rabbit hole because one of our commenters, shout out to you, was talking about how the Cielsen are based on Gnostic beliefs, which if those people that don't know, the Gnostic beliefs are there's Christians and there's Gnostic Christians, which arose after the Gospels of Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John were written, and people, historians estimate 70 to 110 AD or so. But the Gnostic Bibles are the Bibles not in the official Bible. It's the Gospels of Thomas, the Gospel of Judas, the Gospel of Mary Magdalene, all these other Gnostic Gospels that were created. The earliest, I think, is Gospel of Thomas at 150 AD, but the church calls heresies. The Catholic Church sees them as heretical, and I believe the figure, the actual historical figure, Irenaeus, I'm probably saying that wrong, had this book called Against Heresies, where it showed these Gnostic texts aren't true, But essentially the Gnostics look at the Old Testament, the God of the Old Testament in our actual Bible, in the Bible that exists, looks at the Old Testament God and says, that's an evil God. Versus this Jesus figure in the New Testament, these Gospels, this Jesus guy is great. But that Old Testament God who's committing genocide, doing all those bad things, they look at that old God and see it as, oh, we're trapped in this evil material world. And that I'm projecting this into what I believe Rocky was getting at from commenters and discourse online of the villains here, the Cielsen, seem to be based on this Gnostic belief of this evil world, and we need destruction because we are trapped in this evil God's world. And we need to get out. And we need the Watchers, the gods they see are beyond time. And it just, there's more to learn here, but it just adds on to what Rocky was getting at. We're gonna miss stuff, and I think since this series is new, it's still coming out, this is gonna be one of those things that gets studied and learned more about as time goes on, and Rockio shows us what's the ending here, and then all of it will kind of come together even more. It's just, there's so much to these books, and that the themes, even though the theme you could dumb down to, like we said, hey, mythos of a character, there's so many layers to it, and it's going to stick in your mind. That's awesome stuff. I think Ash is a Man, especially, that we don't see the Cielsen as much as we did in Kingdoms of Death, of course. We didn't see Doriaika, this book. We see, again, I hope I don't butcher it, Aitiata. Vayadan Aitiata?
Vayadan
Ativasa. And so we see Ativasa as the villain of this character. And I kind of want to transition. Do you want to go into characters now?
The last thing on the legend, I'll just end it with here. End it with this thing. In the present day, where, future Hadrian talking about how he knows how the rest of the world sees him as like a fallen hero, and don't see him with the same legendary status. And I think part of that, of course, is him blowing up the sun. And a lot of people going like, that's not what heroes do.
I need a hero. Come on.
However, I don't think that is the only moment. So Hadrian from the council's perspective and from the emperor's perspective, wanting to stop the fight. He doesn't want to fight anymore. He is running away. I think that is the first step of the breaking of the legend of Hadrian Marlowe. He is no longer just this hero out of time. It comes to save the day and all these positive legends. After this, it's going to be far more mixed. People are going to remember the old legend of Hadrian Marlowe, and they're now going to start spreading stories of Hadrian Marlowe, the runaway, the treasoner, the abandoner of mankind. Like, they're going to start spreading this other mythos about him. And so I imagine in the next book, we're going to see kind of the ramifications of that. His legendary status is not going to be the same, and it's going to be far more about the man. So that's something I wanted, I'm interested to see in the next book.
And how does this man end up on Colchist?
Again.
We'll see.
I love Colchist. I love how much we come back to Colchis.
Yes. It feels like home. It's not Delos, it's not Earth, but it feels like home.
I would like to see. I hope we get a moment between Hadrian and his biological father. The amount that it's been teased a little bit of oh no, his father's actually. So I'm wondering if it'll ever happen.
There's a world building moment that I will be good, and I will save it. That I need it now.
You need it?
I will save it, but
Okay, we'll save it.
I need it bad. Bad. Okay. Characters. What'd you give out of 5 stars?
Yeah, 4.75.
Nearly floored you.
Nearly floored me. Absolutely spectacular.
Nice.
What did you give it?
4.25. Really great.
I think the big reason why I'm putting this so high is I love Hadrian's journey in this one. Mm-hmm. Hadrian and Valka's journey was emotional, and I feel so tied to this character. And then you add on top of that the new character introductions are just fantastic. I'm loving these new characters. Some are kind of new with Sir Lauren is amazing, but he's technically, from book 1, but we get to see him in a new light. Wonderful. Everything with that. The Emperor is shown in brand new lights here. We'd love to see more of him. Everything. All the characters are great. And then Hadrian, of course, pinnacle.
Yeah, Hadrian's awesome as always. And I guess when we're introduced to the big side character, do you want to talk Hadrian first and then go on?
Sure.
What is Hadrian's journey, this book, that got you? Because when we rate characters, we're talking about how irreplaceable this character is. Obviously, Hadrian, irreplaceable. Mm-hmm. But then you have, what was his main motivation in this book? What was he trying to accomplish? What was his? Did he have a mini character arc here? Would you say?
Sure, it's kind of a continuation of Hadrian is feeling the burden of his legend, the burden of his image, and the weight of the universe is on his shoulders, and he cannot take it. He has sacrificed nearly everything, and now he has nothing left but his, fake bones. That's all he has left. And so him dealing with that is wonderfully paired with the Emperor, because Hadrian in this book does finally sees the perspective of the Emperor, where through the past books he does respect the Emperor quite a bit. It's this book where he realizes of how much that I have suffered for all of the deaths that I have had to weigh on my conscience, and all that I have lost, and all that I have to protect. And he sees the Emperor is dealing with that tenfold.
He says about the Emperor, William was no lesser emperor, nor even a merely good one. William was a great emperor, the greatest perhaps since the first. But he was emperor in an age that begged more than greatness of its lords, and he was only great.
Yeah, but I loved seeing that pairing of how well the Emperor William really did. He exemplified everything that Hadrian needed to. He needed the strength to have, and he just didn't. And so he failed, and it's understandable. He's gone through so much, and maybe given more time, he could, but he is not granted enough time.
Yeah. In this world where the Cielsen are so obviously evil as well, it's a book that's showing this emperor in another space opera. You could see a very villainous emperor who's there. Your Sidious, your Darth Sidious. The way that Christopher Rocchio pitches the series to people, he says, imagine if being Darth Vader was a good thing, being Anakin Skywalker. And so comparing Darth Vader, Anakin Skywalker to Hadrian, and then obviously your Sith Lord, instead of Sith Lord, it's Emperor William, which is much better than the opposition. And so Hadrian's able to have this patriotism and adore his emperor in many ways, even with the slap, but is able to look at his empire and his culture and still stand for something.
Yeah.
And so his relationship with the emperor was so neat because he is so patriotic, or just he loves his emperor, he loves his country, or whatever you explain, not a country, but literal galactic empire to the point.
The emperor and his people are just asking too much of him, asking too much of him at his lowest points, and to keep driving the horse when the horse is like, it's nearly dead. Like there's
that horse got a triple frown.
Yeah, triple. But yeah, no, so I also love the moment where even Valka sees how actually noble the emperor is. I'm going like, hey, okay, you guys aren't all bad. Like the Emperor, like he genuinely does care about his people. He feels the deaths of the common man and is doing everything he can to save them at the risk of his own life and his own peerage. Like
That's admirable.
He is putting he is not just trying to cart away all the nobles and like let them escape before the peasants. He is trying to save as many of the peasants and the serfs as he really can. He's doing his best.
Yeah.
And not only doing his best and being satisfied with it, he is devastated that his best is not enough.
Mm.
And yeah, you feel for him. Like, yeah, hey, that's what you hope for a noble or emperor of that status. You want that. So even Valka kind of approves, or at least, approved.
Past tense. And my favorite introduction in this book was Hector. What I really liked about him too was the mirror that Hector shows to Hadrian, not just the mythos that Hector becomes eventually, but Valka explains to Hadrian and says, you dislike him because you see your prior young self in this Hector. And it's more of a reflection of how Hadrian thought of Hadrian in book 1 than it is of Hector himself. But he sees that not even direct cockiness, but just a naivety, a bit of edge, or just this Hector so certain, and he's showing this level of he's not aged like wine like I have. He has not gone through what I have gone, so I could see why he has his shoulders are still up high, and
he has the youthful arrogance.
Yeah,
but thing is, it's not. That's
not undeserved.
It's not completely undeserved. Like the guy clearly does have charm. He does have leadership skills. He does have skill with a blade, and he has all these things where, here there's a reason why he can hold his head up high. But Hadrian's looking. Hadrian with all the scars, he's going like. It kind of looking at his past self, like why are you gritting? Like, don't you know what's to come? And it's unfair to tell the youth that. That is never the good message to give to the youth of like, life is suffering. You're gonna like be happy now because it's only gonna get worse. Like you don't do that. You don't do that to people. But
Rocky in our interview was saying this, and I love that he said this because I think parents should, in general, and it's just his personal experience, but he was talking about everybody warned him, when you have a kid, good luck. Good luck there, fellow. When you have a kid like I do, life gets tough. Life gets worse. And he's a father of 2 now. And, they're not teenagers. He hasn't gone through everything a parent has gone through, but he's going, no, it's great, actually. Kids are great. And he's saying it was not nearly as hard as everybody espouses it to be, but you ever get that negative energy from somebody who's just more experienced, has more life than you, and because their own worldview molds them, they think that everybody is going to have that experience, and it can depress you. Hadrian's looking at Hector. Weird analogy to make going to because the interview we had with him, but you ever get that just from someone that obviously has a lot more experience than you, so you have to take their word for something. Yeah, it's just. Hadrian's the one to take word from here because, he's Hadrian. However, you can get bad advice from people, and you also he knows not to go to Hector and just go, suffering. It's going to get worse. Yeah. Give up now.
He has a snide little comment, but ultimately he does come around to Hector, and he knows like, hey, I shouldn't try and beat down the youthful spirit. Yeah. That's not the right thing to do.
That's not very cash money.
Give him wisdom and let him know, like warn him of like, hey, look, it's not all sunshine and rainbows ahead. Like you must be prepared. Don't take this stuff lightly. But ultimately, don't beat down his spirit and tell him like, oh, you should never be happy and all. Yeah. So,
for me, this stands out. Obviously, Hadrian, Emperor. We got the most from the Emperor this book than in any of them because of it. The book was essentially focused on the Emperor and Hadrian's journey and his disillusion with the Emperor himself and bringing him to the next step of finally leaving the empire, and Hector being a very cool introduction as well. We have Lorien, who at the end of the book sacrifices, takes the blame to get Hadrian out and escape with the Jadians, with Sir Lorien. Does Lorien do any wrong? I don't think so.
Lorien is just the best.
He's the tactical nuke. He's the last weapon Hadrian has to pull. And he's getting, you know who's getting on my nerves? Alexander. Alexander's getting on my nerves. He's the little twat. Alexander, I think, could be a better done character. I do like the relationship, again, Hadrian has with all these characters. But with Alexander, I'm thinking back to the motivation and why Alexander's doing what he's doing. It's from a conversation he overheard in a book that was a slight to his pride.
Well, yes and no. Like that started the negative relationship, but it quickly evolved past that. It really isn't about that anymore. It's just it pushed Alexander away from Hadrian's circle and trust, and so he no longer really listened to Hadrian. He listened to he listened to his mother. He listened to the people on forum that constantly whispering in his ear that Hadrian is coming for he's coming for your spot. He's coming for the throne.
Yeah.
Like, you see the people that Alexander is surrounded with and is now grown up, has had more time with them. You get it. And then he gets to see the people around him and his own soldiers and people going like, Hadrian, the half-mortal, the god emperor, come again. No shit. He's going to be like, Jesus Christ. Like,
yeah.
If Hadrian wanted to, it wouldn't take much for Hadrian to usurp the throne if he really wanted to. Now, Alexander should hopefully know Hadrian, but then Hadrian brings up in this book very well of, he has been truthful to Alexander in the sense of like, I do not want the throne. You've lived with me. Like, you understand how I live. I don't want anything to do with that. However, Alexander's grown up his whole life, and after he left Hadrian, Alexander has been on forum with constant politicking and dual faces and people lying to his face, and there's always a meaning behind what they say. Like, there's never anyone straightforward with him. You kind of get like, maybe he's lying, maybe he's trying to get in my good graces. You would hope the moment that actually does kind of like should shatter that illusion or the misconception that Alexander has, is Alexander comes crawling back to Hadrian of, please save my daddy. And Hadrian like going, if I do, please, for the love of God, let me leave. Like, that's what I want. That's my boon, is let me leave. I want what you want. To be gone. Please.
Yeah, where a book where I liked that done better was a very soft spoiler. You won't know if you haven't read the book. You won't know the specific of it. Just take it out of your memory. But Stormlight Book 1, that relationship there. That's probably what Hadrian should do. And it's just a frustrating relationship of Hadrian's not being Hadrian enough to be like, hey, just shut up. But also Alexander's whole that what he's being talked about behind the scenes. We don't see that. We just see the time jump and we meet Alexander again, and he's twat again. And so it's just, I like the forum stuff with the emperor. Since we're so locked into Hadrian's point of view, the Alexander stuff seems superfluous in a way of just like, oh yeah, the whiny brat of the emperor who's respectful and the kid who's going to be a horrible emperor if he does take the throne, and he's filling that role. And for Rocchio, I'd expect a bit more intrigue than that part. So the catalyst is there, and he fills that twat role. Well, there's a lot of twats. Prince Joffrey, there's plenty of twats in that.
He's also not too much of a twat. You know what I mean?
No, he's not like whiny. Like
he's not like completely the worst. No. He's
there. He's a gnat.
That's part of it. He's insignificant.
Yeah.
Like, compared to Hadrian, what is Alexander? Nothing. He's a nothing person. Everything that he has comes from his genealogical peerage. And Hadrian tried to teach him the lesson of like, when the chips are down, that's nothing. Like, that will get you in the door. But you need to live up to to your position. And it doesn't seem like Alexander really ever is. And he's taking too many lessons that the politicking is actually more important than the actual getting things done. That the emperor actually learned of like, the emperor's good at politics. Like, he plays the game, but ultimately he knows if all the people are dying, who cares what the politics are? Like, he's willing to put aside the politics of like, I don't, everyone at forum going like, you got to kill Hadrian because he's a potential threat to your power. And the emperor just kind of like screaming at his at all of his advisors going like, the Sea Elves are literally like slaughtering us, and you want me to kill the best person fighting him? Idiots.
Do you agree? All I'm saying,
my God, he's just like, for the love of God, shut up. Let the guy who is fighting the enemy so damn well, our best fighter, you want me to kill him because he's doing too good of a job?
So what you're saying, if the Emperor deserves 1 slap, Alexander deserves 2. That's all I'm saying.
Oh yeah, no, 100%.
Just 2 slaps, and I'll be satisfied.
Yeah, no, but I'll agree with you. I kind of want more. I think Christopher can actually give us more from Alexander other than just, bratty twat of the prince.
Yeah. Which
I imagine we will.
Yeah, I imagine so too, especially if in these next 2 books something happens to the Emperor or who knows what happens. Again, so curious to see the be outside the Empire.
Well, we also do know Alexander will become the Emperor. Like, that has been told. Like,
oh, yeah.
Because Alexander is the one that banishes Hadrian.
Yes.
By the end of the day. So
yes. But when does he die? Is it is it book 7 toward the end and then we just jump to that? Or does it happen next book and there's a build up so that we see? Yeah. So yes, anything else with characters? Velka, we talked about her emotionally, but did you want to mention something about her character, her arc?
I mean, it's just lovely seeing how much she's changed along with Hadrian.
Yeah.
She is her own person. I'm just seeing from book 1 how much she hates the Empire and the amount of crap she's had to go through. Seeing both her and Hadrian have this kind of merging of beliefs and identity is very interesting. Of Hadrian being far more progressive toward technology, to some degree, but now Volca seeing the Extrasolarians, seeing the Sea Elves, and going like, yeah, give me your empire any day. Like, oh, I see what the Chantry has against technology. I kind of get it. You look at the Extrasolarians going like, yeah, there is a such thing as too far. Yeah, I understand.
You folk look Amish compared to them. Wow.
So
Velka getting that constant culture shock.
Yeah, and also I think it comes with the territory of her staying with one person and loving one man for the remainder of her life. It's the human connection of like, the Tavarosi have all their cultural practices of separating people from their familiar or friend connections of like, you're not allowed to have a singular lover because that is discriminatory toward other people. You're not allowed to have
your kids are all adopted, right? You have to take
so you're not allowed to have your
home.
own child.
Yeah.
All of that kind of stuff does separate you from what makes the human condition important. Mm-hmm. And then we learn a little bit more about how the Tavarosi homeworld is so gray because they project all the beauty onto it.
Yeah.
So basically a form of AR. And now that Volca is living amongst the Empire, of like a big part of what Rockio is trying to say and that Hadrian says frequently is man is his experiences, but he is not just that. Man is a combination of the mind, body, and spirit. Of you are your memories, but you are also your body. Your body defines your mentality and how you exist in the world. Your body is important. Just it's how you experience and look through the world with a certain lens.
Going back to Howling Dark's message about the ship of Theseus and changing those parts, but what about the soul? That mind, body, spirit, what changes about you?
Yeah. And a very important distinction of Hadrian never, unlike, Hadrian, I wonder what you think about this comparison of the Extrasolarians. In some ways do, like on a surface level, do something very similar to what Hadrian does. Of, they're able to, kill their body and download and jump their mind into another host body. And think of what Hadrian has done. Of his head was cut off and he died and he came back to life in another Hadrian body. What exactly happened? And I think it's important that Hadrian acknowledges throughout all of this, like, he died. It's not that he survived death or he came back and he is him. he does see himself almost like he is a separate person. I did die after that. And I am me. I don't know what I am anymore, but I did die. And so when he confronts the Extrasolarians, it is like, you are a shattered remnant of a soul. Like, they have killed themselves and they are going, yeah, sure, their memories are going into a new body, but they're not the same. So anyway, all to say, lovely, lovely, interesting things I love reading in this book. So
yeah, the character work again is Hadrian's emotions and mentality right now is the most shattered it's been. His body is the most shattered it's been. So it's not just a story beat low. It's Hadrian emotionally, physically, spiritually is low in every regard. And next book, curious to see if that gets elevated or not. If he starts to become Hadrian again.
The fact that there's 2 more books,
Yep.
you know, like I'm to some degree, I kind of imagine that Rocky was going to end the series with some degree of hope.
Mm-hmm.
And just kind of my impression. I don't think this is going to have a particular. It'll most likely be bittersweet, but I don't see this as I don't think we're gonna have a negative end. So I'm wondering if are the next 2 books going to be an upward trajectory, or are we only going to get the upward trajectory at the tail end of the 7th book?
Yeah, I think.
What do you think?
I think it's going to be tail end when the sun destroys and they all go kumbaya. Woo! It's going to be sun explodes and the last line's going to be, this is where the story ends, reader. And the message of the story was loud explosions. And then just walk off screen. I think it's going to be very happy, Richard.
Yeah.
I hope it's bittersweet. I hope it's bittersweet. And I think it's set up in that way. I think I also hope that I get, as much as it's been telegraphed from the start of the book that the sun will explode and this is what happens. I'm praying that it is not as simple as ends justify the means or ends explain the means. Something more to it, since we do know the ending. What is he leaving? What is he keeping from us? You know, it's that what's that element that he's not telling us about the ending that makes it all get put together?
I'm wondering if there's some degree of it is important. I think we've talked about this before. The ends don't justify the means, but often they can explain.
Yep, that's my feeling.
This series is doing a lot of explaining of like, Hadrian blowing up a sun doesn't justify all the human deaths that he causes, but it certainly explains it. But it means that he doesn't. Justice determines that he does not get off scot-free for it, and that justice means he gets a bittersweet ending instead of a sweet ending.
Right,
and that's just the cost of the atrocity he commits to save everyone.
It is a very grand and space opera existential way of explaining something, as in a person who's starving and can't afford food and can't get food steals an apple from a food market and eats the apple. Was it wrong? Did you steal? Yes. Is it explained well if you were starving and had to, yes, I mean,
like, who else?
Oh, you little poor folk, shame on you.
Yeah, no, it's like, it's still wrong, but also, who would judge you otherwise? Of like, everyone would make the same decision, and I don't know. It is a difference.
Yeah, because what's the harm to the person the clerk losing that apple versus you go and you take all of their food in excess.
Well, that's the problem. The reason why it's important to have that line of it's still wrong, but I understand, is because if it no longer is wrong, then it's just a constant scale of, the what utilitarianism scales of suffering of like, we're just trying to like, as long as the amount of suffering is less than the amount of happiness you bring, then A-okay.
Right.
Then that justifies like, hey, one guy losing all of like a mob steals everything from one person's store. Yeah, that person suffered a lot, but look at how other many people are happy. Like, then you get into a bunch of nonsense. But
yeah.
I feel like we were talking about characters and we kind of went back to thought provoking.
We're going right back to plot now.
Yeah,
let's rein it in. Plot, would you give that out of 5 stars?
Plot, 4.25.
4.25 from me as well. Really great.
Really great plot.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mainly like the switch up with this of just how straightforward it is. It does feel a little bit more... I liked it for this book, and I just hope it is not the same way for the rest of the series. Mm-hmm. But for the past 2 books, Hadrian has definitely been a far more passive character. He is being led along. He is not the master of his own destiny, and not just by the quiet, but now just on almost every scene.
Everyone's ragdoll.
He is everyone's ragdoll.
Yep.
And it's an enjoyable change of pace from the previous books. Like, I like a little difference. I hope that doesn't continue into the next book. I hope Hadrian does gain back a little bit more agency. It's what makes a good space opera very enjoyable, as a protagonist that is clearly moving the world rather than the world moving them.
Yeah. Being an active character, very important. And Hadrian in this book, what are we promised from the get-go? We see Gibson just died in the last one. We start off this one where he's got to go to the Emperor, and the Emperor is on this tour on the edges of the Empire to galvanize, in a sense, or to support. And that's the premise of this book. And then we get Hadrian mini mission, and we get Save the Emperor as well. And it concludes with, this is just a quick summary, but then concludes with Emperor saved, Valka dead, going off to Jad.
Yep.
That is the story. Is there any major part of that promise, progress, payoff where you felt, oh, that was a great structure. He plotted that super well. What do you want to give flowers to?
From the very beginning of this book, it's with the dialogue between Hadrian and Valka and other character interactions.
Yeah.
Hadrian frequently mentions how much he has given his everything to the Empire, and they keep taking more, and he can't take it anymore. Like, even though he may want revenge, but it's so much. And he realized, I am being driven like a dog without food. I'm going to keel over and collapse. I can't keep going. The Empire has taken too much from me. No matter how much I love the Emperor and the Empire, they've taken too much from me. And so it is right that this book has maybe not final, but it is certainly an ending. Readers.
This is an ending.
It is not the ending, but it is an ending of his relationship with the Empire. Now we're going after Jad. He is a fugitive of the Empire, so he no longer has to play their games to the same degree anymore. And so it is an end of that type of relationship. That the relationship that he's going to have with the Empire going forward will have to be new. And so, that's what we got. We got to see Hadrian pushed to the very end, and finally throwing off his chains of saying, I can't do it anymore. Yep.
That was the most satisfying part of the plot for me. There was that character progression and that feeling of, okay, this chapter's over. We're moving forward, and there was dire consequences to Hadrian's figure. Everybody saw it. It was also an extremely tense scene. Yeah, go ahead.
You just add on, the rest of the book was really necessary in seeing how much Hadrian now pales in comparison to his letter. He can't live up to the expectations everyone are putting around him.
Hector.
He doesn't have his people that trust him. He's a shadow of what he is and ultimately he cannot serve what everyone is asking of him anymore. And it makes sense why he would leave.
He was ready to desert.
Yeah. And it's it makes sense. So you see him in the combat roles of with people that he has not lived with. He's with the lack of his Red Company. It's they don't know him, and he's not an effective leader with them.
Many of them weren't even born.
Yeah, and it's very much he probably should leave. He can't fulfill the duties that he's being placed in.
Yeah, his arc in this book, not the co-character, the plot beats in this story end there, but I think we already discussed how the intro portion didn't time skip and got kind of right into it. Did you feel that this was faster paced? Did you feel that it was the same as others? Because I think, am I wrong in saying this was the shortest of the Suneater books? Or I believe it is.
Kind of. It's definitely shorter than Demon in White. and I think shorter than Howling Dark.
Yeah, then definitely Kingdoms of Death too, I think. So this is one of the shorter ones. Did it feel as short as what? Did it feel faster paced to you in any way?
Yeah, but I think that's more in the case of the structure of this book was all one timeline, no big time jumps. Basically one thorough story beat in comparison to like Demon in White, where you get, I think, like five separate types of stories kind of rolled into one. Mm-hmm. And even Kingdoms of Death was basically 2 or 3, I guess, stories rolled into it, or 3 different plots. Mm-hmm. This one was 1. It felt like one long plot. Yeah,
you're definitely right where it goes Demon White 5 to the 3 to the 1, to making it feel in your head a lot more
streamlined.
Yeah, streamlined. And I've already complained about my biggest complaint about the plot is the Valka telegraphing and Alexander stuff. That's more character. So with this one, I think it was a great moving read in that sense of it's not as impressive as the prior 2 for me of what the plots were doing. Mm-hmm. It is just one thing, but that doesn't, just because it's doing one story, also didn't made it enjoyable. It didn't defeat my enjoyment. I was just as engaged. I think the fact that the Emperor and Hadrian's, their entire relationship was the through line of this book, which made it extremely engaging because you made a great point about how the Emperor is saying, what would Hadrian do in that sense? And is the Emperor being entirely truthful? What is he not telling Hadrian? I'm deeply fascinated with that, but the hook for this, and I think the battle sequence for this one was one of my favorites of the books as well. This was a super cool, it was a lot more imaginative, or the planet that the Emperor was on, and having all the millions of people, or hundreds of thousands of millions, whatever the number was, that had to protect, that were in cryo. Essentially, like that, also very cool setup to that, and having to come save the day. There was also against the Minos and against what is the Minos's villain's name? Urbane.
I think it's Urbane.
Urbane, yes. The Minos and the bits we got there was also interesting, but it's just another one of those. It's a Suneater book, so no, it's not doing anything. It's not doing anything crazy different than the others, other than it's fun. I think the plot's well done and not as good as the other ones, but just as fun.
I'd agree with you.
Yeah, I don't have I don't think that I have something that I could complain about other than the Valka thing. So was there anything that disappointed you?
Well, I mean, personally, I like all the Valka stuff. To me, it was tension rather like Rocchio sacrificed surprise with just dread and tension. And yes, that is a carryover from book 4, so
that's
it's like another
I
feeling.
Felt it, yeah.
But to this one, it just felt a lot worse.
Yeah.
Of book 4 kind of had dread for Hadrian, but then the loss of his Red Company just kind of comes suddenly.
Yeah.
This one, it's pulled out of you. Like, you just feel it. You know it's coming. And so I'm along for the ride. I'm fine with it not being surprised, and also it probably wouldn't have worked as well.
Mm-hmm. Was there anything that you didn't like in the plot? Why was it lower than the other ones? Because I'm just trying to get that feeling. Because it was obviously a great plot. Why really great?
Why really great? I mean, the really great thing is it all meshes really well together. It delivers on the promise so well. But the minute-to-minute moments maybe aren't as exciting, and I think that's just the nature of it. Mm-hmm. So I was probably more energetic about some of the other plots in the previous books. I see this as very necessary, but... Yeah,
you're right. You're definitely right about that. That's the big thing. It pays off on that central promise of Hadrian and the Emperor, and also pays off Valka. We know although telegraph that dread that you're feeling. Eventually, Valka does pass, and that shift you see in Hadrian's mentality of he genuinely is giving up, wanted to give up, and was done. There's a reason he slapped the Emperor, because he was seemingly willing to almost commit suicide. So, do you want to go on to world building? Or anything else?
This is a carryover between plot and world building.
Okay.
And it's about the nature of the Quiet's power.
Let's go to world building for that.
Yeah. Because if I were to say anything like plot holes, or like where I'm a little bit more confused, and maybe it's, is it a problem with the book, or is it just the nature of the world building?
Right.
It's Hadrian's relationship with these powers. Of he got these godlike powers in Demon White, and then he basically kind of loses it in Kingdoms of Death, but he gets it back when the plot really needs it at the highest moment. He does get it, and then same thing in this book of like it fails him when he needs it to save Valka, and then once Valka's dead, now the powers work. So is that a plot convenience or is that good world building? That's the question.
What was your world building score?
Yeah. My world building is a 4.75. Absolutely spectacular, nearly floored. I love this world.
4.5, spectacular world. Loved it.
Yeah, the addition of one, we get a little bit more of the Jadians, which I'm super excited for seeing them in the next book. Everything with the Emperor, the God Emperor of old, and we get far more of the history and the mystery is revealed about nature of the quiet and the old gods, that there's actually like 4 of them. There's not just the Watchers and the Quiet. There's more. So find out more about that.
That's the world building nugget that I need to chew on right now. I need the answer to it of when the Emperor revealed to Hadrian that the first Emperor William's wife had writings and an account of William's dreams, and there's only 3 copies left. One of them's on Old Earth. Other 2 are.
Yeah,
and
like,
so
you're just going like, hold on a second.
I need that right now.
What do you mean Old Earth?
Yeah,
I thought it was gone.
I know. And so I need to find out. I need that account. I need to know what's in that now.
Yeah.
Thank you. And so that is just, I could not be more engrossed in finding out, because my favorite parts about the series so far, Howling Dark, top tier, but the Demon and White stuff about the Americanii, and then going to Annika and seeing the Quiet. He does world building so incredibly well. And Ashes of Man continues on that stride of how immersive and how much you just feel this galaxy is real. With
how quick was adding Hector and just the little bit of bit of an aside of saying like, now you reader may not
obviously you know who he is.
Obviously you know who he is, and I didn't know at the time what Hector would become and what he would be. For the world needs heroes, because just like I did, they break, and Hector is another one of these heroes. Wonderful. Yep. Wonderful world building. It just makes this whole thing feel so much more alive. Yeah,
Hector added a lot to the feel of the world in this one, and you get that sense. Also, you have we have a lot of bits with the extrastellarians. Did their development of a cancer do anything for you?
Oh yeah, I mean, using the Americanii disease, like because the
way that was visualized.
Yeah.
Oh,
because one, I absolutely love that kind of nugget of world building that the Americanii are going like, hey, people keep dying. How do we stop death? And using a twisted form of cancer that constantly rejuvenates cells, but it's all these twisted, like technically alive, and using gene editing and cancer to keep these creatures alive.
Yep. Is
ingenious world building. Love it. And it's just great body horror, like crazy. Mm-hmm. So the Minos using that as well. What's going to happen there? So
yes. That part was fascinating, and I'm trying to think of anything else super positive, because all that stuff was great. All that stuff, loved that. If there's something else, bring it up. But then the question of the quiet powers comes into play, where I don't dislike it, and I'm not like completely getting it yet. I'm at a state where I trust Rocchio. He knows what he's doing here. Mm-hmm. Obviously, the quiet powers at this point are coming across as a soft magic system would. Mm-hmm. You don't know how Gandalf does the wizardy thing. You don't know. It happens. But there's more to it that we're not being told right now. So I feel out of the loop at the moment. Just he's able to connect with the quiet, or maybe that is the extent of the power. It's when Hadrian is able to. However, what do you think? Is it more plot convenience thing? Because you were bringing us into world building, saying that quiet power coming in, does it Where are you at with it?
It's starting to feel a little bit more plot conveniencing rather than an actual ability. And the reason why I say this is in Demon in White, I think it was, I think Rocky established, or at least made the reader kind of aware that Hadrian has taken the gifts that the Quiet controlled in Howling Dark and manipulated things, and because of Hadrian's experiences, he can now see the way the Quiet, in some small way, the way the Quiet does, and he has this ability. Now, adding to it of the restraints in Demon in White is he does only see a fraction. He sees a tiny sliver of the infinite that the Quiet are able to do. And so, and he's not able to really go through it fully. He can't actually, take things from other worlds, but he can choose which reality he will be in. And basically he can't change the past, but he can determine to some degree the future. Fair enough. And it takes incredible focus. And that because he only sees a sliver, the more variables there are, the more impossible and useless that ability actually becomes. So it makes sense of why was he able to do the laser? Avoid the laser. It's one direction. I can
avoid shooting himself.
Avoid shooting. If the attack is coming from one way and he can see it happening and he can prevent, if he knows it's going to happen and there's only one avenue, he can avoid it. Versus if someone just mobs him, 10 people trying to attack him, there's too many variables, something's going to slip through, and he doesn't have full omnipotent powers. Made sense to me, at least at the time. I was led to believe in the story of this is Hadrian's ability that he has learned. Then Kingdoms of Death goes, okay, it starts off the book with he gets a headache if he uses it too much, of the focus is a drain on him mentally, and sometimes he can't reach it. He has to be in a focused state. If he's distracted or his emotions are elevated, it also doesn't work. And then because of the torturing, he was basically broken emotionally. He couldn't reach it. And you go, okay, fair enough, I guess. But even when then it just kind of comes out of nowhere that at the heightened emotional state, he finally can reach out and he talks with another Hadrian, which seems like a progression of these abilities, that now he's doing the same thing the Quiet did to him in book 2, but now it seems like he's the one in control. And then Ash is a man, he's had years to process and he still can't see it. And
from where?
He's now had years to process after the death of the Red Company. He's had years on Colchis.
The flights.
The emotional state, yes, he is sad, but he is not in panic anymore. And he still can't see the other futures. So he seems blocked some way. And it seems like it comes as, I'm now almost led to believe he was not able to use his abilities to prevent his own personal suffering, both for the Red Company, every moment that he couldn't choose the right future to save any of his friends. He couldn't choose the right future to save Valka. I'm now starting to be led to believe that it is not his ability, that it is actually the Quiet all along, and that the Quiet are deliberately making him suffer, and that they're putting him on the path of for you to push the big red button, you need to be at a low point. You need to suffer. And so now I'm led to believe okay, I don't think it's him. They will let him use the ability sometimes when it is convenient to them. The minute that it is no longer convenient to their plan, they won't let him do it. So it's not his ability. That's kind of where I'm at now, I think.
Last book, I was thinking that last book and theorizing that because of the Kingdoms of Death, why we know that he eventually destroys Sun. The Quiet want him to destroy Cielson, so do they want him tortured and to be able to push that button? Is it in their control? Or is it the sense here where because Velka dies and then he is able to use his powers as well. So is something tied to he needs to be in a certain emotional state to do it? Does it have to be adrenaline in some sense as well? Does that have to be connected? But I tend to lean toward the other theory of it's more so the quiet's doing and the quiet pulling the strings more so than Hadrian.
Yeah, it's an interesting question. I'm just wondering, is that because there's the other factor of, I think that if the quiet made it known that they are the ones in control, that it is not Hadrian's ability, and going like, if Hadrian then becomes aware of, oh, the quiet deliberately held off my powers so I couldn't save my friends, he'd be far less likely to push the button of like, actually, I kind of don't want to spite you, quiet. I'm going to not help you. So does the quiet's like grand plan is slowly develop and make Hadrian think it's his ability. So that way when it goes away, that they don't take the blame for it at the end of the day. So like, because there is that moment in book 4 where he's about to walk on water and he's about to prove to the agents of Minos that, no, I actually can see these futures and like I can choose reality as I see fit. And he would have done so if not for the Minos agent like shocking him. And so the powers did kind of come back in that moment. What does that mean?
Yeah,
what does that say?
Right.
Is it because it was insignificant that it wouldn't actually have helped him? And so like Quiet's like, sure, why not? Give it to you. And that when it matters most, they'll stop him.
Right.
So are you kind of on that same train of it is the Quiet manipulating it and not Hadrian just
him having his head cut off and then going in Annika and having this spiritual experience makes me feel that they're in more control than it's being led on.
Yeah.
Yeah. I give it that world credit of it's that soft magic. I'm interested. I'm invested. So I would give any negatives more to plot of, I don't fully understand. How can that come back? So I give all the credit to world, and plot I'm going to hold judgment.
Sure.
More and just see where this ends up.
Yeah. And there's the added factor of it's not completely soft magic in that sense of the Minos agent and other agents of the Empire. They do brain scans of him and going like, they see something like there's something off with his brain of firing at rates much faster than computers. So like his sense of time is different. Like he has, in some way, his brain has become mutated or evolved for these abilities. So it's not just because the first time was just the Quiet doing it to him.
Oh yeah. No, soft magic is defined as like hard as, you know the rules of the system.
Sure.
Soft just meaning, what are the limits? What are the rules of this? You know?
Yeah. Then what I mean is just there is something with Hadrian, like it is something physical ability that he.
It's sci-fi. It's not magic. It's more sci-fi explained than it is. It's not wizard goes kaboom fire. It's in the sci-fi genre. It's not a.
Actually, honestly, now that I'm just thinking about it, I can imagine that it is actually Hadrian's ability, but because the Quiet are bigger and grander, they can also choose. And so as soon as Hadrian, like, they're constantly able to choose moments where they can block him out. It's not that Hadrian lost his abilities, it's that he does having it, but the Quiet can choose futures that he doesn't see. Or kind
for example,
of
the one where
sight.
he needed the arm the reason they gave him that. Yeah.
And just constantly suppressing, because Hadrian is not as powerful as the Quiet, that they can kind of suppress his abilities and just choosing the futures where he can only see, like when he's blind, or choose a future where he doesn't actually get to see. All these different things of like, it can be his abilities, but the Quiet can also be manipulating him at the same time and stopping him.
Oh yeah, I could see that as well. Here again, we gotta read the next books.
I'm so excited.
Anything else for world building?
Other than we've talked about it a few times before, but I'm excited to go away from the Empire now.
Yep.
I'm excited to experience Jad. that's my big excitement
Yes.
going into the next book. So
That I cannot stress enough. Yes, very excited for that, and very excited to figure out. Please don't just be a nugget. Please don't be an Entwives thing of where it's there's
Old Earth,
the old Earth, and there's also these writings that the first emperor who was connected to the Quiet, his wife, or was it concubine, or what? I believe it was wife, but was
the true wife, basically.
Knew his dreams and what was being said. Where can we learn more? I need that desperately. So he has me by my throat right now of just needing to. Yeah. Okay. Prose out of 5 stars.
4.5. Spectacular prose. As always, Rocchio's the man.
4.75 nearly floored me. I love Rocchio's prose. It's hot take. I have a segment here I can quote, and just to give you a feel of the Rocchio's prose here. He says, "I told you once that the universe has no center, and thus every point is its center, and it is so. If I have strained you, reader, by my repeated insistence that every action matters, that every moment of every life is the moment, the axis about which all things turn, understand that I say these things because they are true. Every step, every turn, every refusal to step, everything matters. The cosmos is not cold or indifferent because we are not different, and we are a part of that cosmos, of that grand order which has dropped from the hand of He who created it. Every decision creates its ripples, every moment burns its mark on time, every action leads us ever nearer to the last day, that final, last battle, and the answer to that last question, darkness or light." Very profound. Just a great way of putting that too.
I will say,
yeah.
I saw a quote in here that it felt like Rocchio was speaking to us in particular.
Oh, please.
How much that we are praising Rocchio of going like, man, the guy's just so smart. He's just got this brain. Like, he just knows all these things. Like, oh my God. The guy is above us. He has knowledge beyond us. And
what would Rocchio do?
What would Rocchio do?
What would he do?
We elevate him and we're just saying all this stuff. I feel like Hadrian was speaking for Rocchio in this moment.
Mm-hmm.
He was talking with Basander Lin, and Basander's asking him like about some nugget of like philosophy, and Hadrian's got a quip of like, oh, that's Archimedes said, like, give me a lever long enough and I will lift the world. And Basander's just like, do you just know everything? Do you like just?
Oh yeah.
How do you have all this?
How are you quoting all that?
How are you quoting all these things? And Hadrian's answer is, I read. I said and shrugged. People always accuse me of wasting my time, but they don't complain when I have their answers. I love it.
That
felt like it was spoken just for us.
Yep.
I don't think he knew us when he wrote this book. No, he did not. But I feel like he did.
I read, Dumbo.
I read, dumbass. Like, man, how does he have all these quotes? How does he have this information, like these insights on Gnostic religion? It's like, I read, man. I read books.
I read stuff. Which, that's why we got to dabble into more philosophy, our history, and get some pull from that, because people like Rocchio, he has a huge, massive interest, not just in sci-fi fantasy, but in history, in philosophy, in religion as well. So he's well-read in all of that. And it just shows clearly. His prose, we've already talked about his prose many times in the prior books as well, but this one continues to have what I love about Hadrian's voice, of that way he just commands the reader. He demands your attention. He is what I define as that adage that goes, strong opinions loosely held. Hadrian kind of has very strong convictions, but he doesn't come across, I guess that's the difference between confidence and arrogance. He comes across confident, not arrogant at this point, because an arrogant person would have these strong opinions and be incorrigible regardless, not change mind, just be steadfast in that. But he constantly is questioning himself, therefore showing he is not flawless. His introspection, which goes back to the themes that we've had in most of these books, Demon in White was elevated a lot, of the reason he knows he's not an awful person, a bad person, it's discussed, is because he's asking the questions. The psychopath doesn't typically ask, am I a good person? Am I doing the right thing? So he is constantly humble and introspective while also strongly opinionated and strong-willed. And that's why Hadrian, despite being a very complex and certainly not completely morally perfect person, because there's decisions you have to make in these books that are bad, but he is certainly somebody to look up to in many regards. There are a lot of things that you want to pull and go, hey, what would Hadrian do in that sense? What would Hadrian do right now in this podcast? What would he say? How would he move his hands? Just think that, and we could be better people, maybe.
I have not read enough books to be Hadrian Marlowe.
No, not be him. Just what would he do, you know?
He would say things that I cannot articulate. That's the problem.
You're doing the thing again, so you just got to read more, Rocky says.
I know.
Yeah.
It's like, Rocky is telling me, read more, dumbass.
That's it.
There we go.
That's the thing about reading, too, is it's very true. Of just being Google and Wikipedia happy, yes, you can get a ton of information from the internet, but my learning style, books are still the best way to learn. They have the most. It's not just an article where it's first research if it's a good author and they know the subject very well. They're dumping in their expertise and their specific knowledge set. What we're reading of Rockio right now is his life's passions into this book and the themes he's interested in, and it comes across so well because that's going from, hey, he's delegating to us. Instead of me reading all this kind of cool facts on Wiki and whatnot, how about somebody that read hundreds of books, researched a thing, and then created a book which combines those in a way that's now compelling to me. You know, you can't be a historian, you can't be a philosopher, you can't be a scientist, you can't be all of them. So you go to the scientist, you go to the historian, you go to the philosopher, you read the books that they articulated well, and that's the best way to get knowledge. I just explained knowledge 101. I'm not trying to be profound like Hadrian. I'm trying. What would Hadrian do? He'd read more, and I'm trying to convince myself to get outside, read some more nonfiction stuff.
I know we've talked about it, but I would like the next month of May. Yep. I would like May to be a light sci-fi fantasy month. Like, we'll read our book club of the month. Maybe we'll continue on with Suneater. But I would like the rest of our books. I have philosophy and political and other interesting history books that I would like to read and have not had the time for. And so I would like May to be that month.
Recommend us some amazing nonfiction reads in the description below.
I really want to read On War by, I can never pronounce his name, Clausewitz, whatever. On War, I'm just going to grab it.
Okay. I want to read a bunch of classics right now. I'm looking at some Dostoevsky. Oh, yeah, it's a thickums, Rich.
On War by Karl von Clausewitz. I have heard many good things about this book, and I've been wanting to read it.
I feel dumb for not.
Long-ass time.
I saw you pick it up in the store. We went to a bookstore the other day, but I've not heard of it. So
yeah, I mean, it is constantly cited as one of those actually good military books of strategy. Like, people talk about the art of war, and in all honesty, art of war is it's basic knowledge. It's important knowledge.
Yeah.
But it's important basic knowledge. Like, it is, the audience for that book was dumbass nobles that, they're in charge of armies and they need to be told that supply lines were vitally important. Of just hey, you know what's really great? When you outnumber the enemy. That's when maybe don't charge an enemy that is double your size. And if you do, maybe try lying. Lying is always great.
Have you ever seen the tread down?
Food's expensive and supply lines are hard. Why don't you take theirs. Take the enemy's supplies. That's always a great
slightly
strategy.
More profound, and you go, oh, wow, look at that. Look at that quote from Sun Tzu.
This is more detailed and, interesting. I think it'll be a bit more. Anyway.
You ever see that trend now, as much as we're talking about philosophers and looking back and reading this knowledge, because the things that we think we're dealing with for the first time humans have dealt with since the dawn of time. And we can look back and learn just as much as we can think all the knowledge is right now. And there's a trend that goes off of what you're saying of Sun Tzu, of people going, man, looking back to ancient Greeks or Newton and all these philosophers and these profound people and being like, yeah, the reason you came up with that is because you were like the first person. Like I would have thought, oh, what goes up must come down. No shit. Like, oh, gravity, apples fall. Whoop-de-doo. Or like, I think, therefore I am. Oh, I have thoughts. Freaking genius. Like they're just making fun of all these things that we've made into adages, and that could turn into platitudes.
We can make fun of it because it has become so deeply ingrained into our collective human knowledge that we go, well, duh.
Yeah, of course.
Well, actually, I did want to. There's actually a quote that I don't have written down, but I remember it was written there of quite literally Hadrian in that same conversation with Hadrian and Basander going like, yeah, I never read all that stuff because, you know, these people died so long ago. It seems like their knowledge is not really applicable to today. And Hadrian's like, yes, the world has changed, but man is not. As long as man makes the same mistakes that we have done in the past, then the past wisdom is still relevant. That's basically what
in the same way of, yes, I think this is the case because what authors, actually, talking to Joe Abercrombie, interviewing him, talking to Rockio and interviewing him, I mean this in a positive way for both of them. I think Abercrombie as well, everybody has a bit of a self-insert, you know, into your characters. Abercrombie with his sadistic characters, I'll say it's more the humor, you know. Abercrombie's humor, you could see how his characters are funny because he's funny.
Part of an author is always in their works.
Exactly.
Yes.
And it's just made me think about this. If I want to do a video about, you know, the death of the author. And I used to, hopefully this is how I act, strong opinions loosely held. What would Hadrian do? But I used to have a pretty strong opinion of death of the author. No, the book is how you interpret it. The book is, after the author completes the work, it is now yours. You take from it what you will. That is your book to garner what you want. There's no longer the author's hand. But then I've been finding a lot of cases where I might just disagree with that. And I go, well, doesn't the author's intent, doesn't what they were trying to get across, doesn't that matter? Let's say you misinterpret it and you get something completely opposite of it. Sure, you can personally feel that way, but does that mean it's death of the author? Or I was just thinking about this because we were reading Tolkien's On Fairy Stories, and then you read Lord of the Rings, and there was this article out there about how the Lord of the Rings was not Catholic, and Tolkien was actually something about Tolkien not being Catholic at all, and the work not being, and it's just wrong.
Yeah,
and I'm going, how can you?
Incorrect.
You're incorrect, and I'm going, well, I guess I could see how stories could affect you differently, but do I agree with the death of the author anymore? I don't know. I want to explore it a lot. I want to think about it.
Getting us closer to the idea of an objectivity to it. Because the idea that is easy and nice about the death of the author is a lack of any responsibility toward truth. Because it means any interpretation is just as good as anything else. And so there's no consequences for being wrong because there's no such thing as wrong. If the death of the author is real and anything I read, every interpretation is just as good as every other interpretation, including the author's, you risk being wrong when you declare truth. And so a lot of people decide to not declare truth and hide behind subjectivity, so they can avoid being called wrong. Which
is why we have an objective rating of 4.25 for Ashes of Man.
Yes.
It's a really great book. It's 4.25, and that is the rating.
Well, it's the thing I actually do enjoy, and I try not to.
Yeah.
And I know I do, but when you are afraid of your own opinion, you're afraid being called wrong, and you don't want the ire or disapproval of others, you will couch your opinion and go like, well, this is just what I think, take what you will, and just like constantly caveat your opinion. That is the sign of either, uncertainty, and uncertainty is oftentimes warranted on subjects that you don't know about. You should caveat it, like saying like, hey, I actually don't know as much. I'm curious to know more. But there's a danger to that of if you are always caveating your opinions, you're constantly trying to justify and give yourself an exit, then you stand for nothing. And so you should strong convictions loosely held, like actually stand behind what you say, let the attacks come, and then deal with it afterward. But state your opinion, even though you could be wrong, you could have the inside your own head, you go, yeah, I could be wrong. Maybe my interpretation isn't right, but for the sake of speaking to others, I will say what I think. I think this is right.
And that's the difference.
And let people...
Confidence and arrogance, though. The confidence is having a strong opinion. The arrogance is having a prideful opinion. I was like this. We're still guilty of it, of course. We all have pride, but definitely more so in college too, high school. But you hopefully become more mature over time. But even today, I'm pride. We all commit this. So it's having that pride in opinions of, especially when you're talking religion, politics, serious topics, where one, there's more emotion behind them because this is something of you think is morally right or wrong. But typically speaking, when it comes to those matters of, you notice where debates start to fall flat. And man, I've been quoting him a lot lately. I've been on a binge by Alex O'Connor, Cosmic Skeptic. He was talking about how in a debate, you don't find out who the best fighter is. You find out who the best boxer is. Debates are more... It's more about the talent of, are you a good debater than are you actually right, And so in debates or when it comes to political stuff, and often the more emotion you show, the more pride you get into your opinion, even if you're just shown blatantly wrong and you're proved wrong, the other person makes a good point. Well, you can't admit the good point because you just showed your hand. You just showed how much you cared, and now you have no retort, and now you just your pride overtakes, and you get stuck in that being unwilling to change your opinion, because the more you get passionate about it, the more you get disillusioned by being able to admit you're wrong. If you go into a conversation going, no, I have these strong opinions. No, this is really what I think, but you have an emotional maturity about it, and you still think like, okay, this other person probably knows a lot more than I do about stuff. If I walk into this conversation, the minute you raise your voice, the minute you point fingers or do something that goes a level beyond like, oh, you're a maturity level. The minute you show your hand past that, you just get to you're kind of off the deep end now. You can't reverse it, because then you look weak, like an ass. Like, you look groveling, because imagine us yelling at each other here and like we're going, this is what I think, and then you go make a point or I make a point, or someone does something. It's like, well, no. It just you seem to see that happen. Of obviously, if you go into the conversation with the strong opinions, loosely held, but strong does not mean don't be prideful, don't be arrogant about it. And I mean that for like book opinions are book opinions. But then think about this when it comes to more so in your political life, religious life, things like that. I mean, obviously, those topics are more heartfelt because it's like, oh, this is right and this is wrong. But how about instead of saying this is right, you just say, no, this is what I think's right. It's a different an inflection in tone in maturity. For that aspect particularly, I think the most important lesson to learn is not every single person is the right audience for espousing your opinions. It's not always relevant and not always necessary. Yeah. I mean, even personally, like at work, like I started having some conversation, just going like, you know what? I'm actually busy. Like, for me to get into this kind of argument debate, like I have these strong opinions, I mention it, and I think like 5 minutes. But clearly the other person has also very strong opinions and wants to hash it out. And I'm just kind of realized like, I don't have time for this. Like I stepped too large. I stepped into something I'm just not really ready to go into right now. Mm-hmm. And yeah, it makes me look like a bitch of like going, like, look, put the conversation on hold. I'm busy. Like they start getting impassioned about it. I'm like, I got work to do. Fine. Listen, let it go. I get that you hate Wheel of Time, okay? I can't do this right now. But, at work, you're not talking Wheel of Time, right?
Yeah, it's more of just sometimes you come across people and you go like, you know what? Conversation about X topic, it's just not worth it. It's not everyone deserves your opinion is a good thing to live by.
That is our Ashes of Man review, Book 5 of Suneater. We are going to be doing Dregs of an Empire next. Dregs.
I believe so.
Yes.
Yes.
And then that's what everybody's recommending to us. Then we'll be getting to Disquiet Gods, and we'll be caught up.
We'll be caught up.
We'll be caught up for the finale in November.
I wonder if we'll get an e-arc. Think we'll get an early copy?
Yeah.
I hope so.
That's my strong opinion. I'm going to loosely hold that, though. That's a loose thread.
Maybe, please.
Either way, I'm happy to read it. That'll be amazing. So that's it. Anything, Rich?
Yeah, that's good for me. Oh, actually, I want to end with a quote.
Oh.
I think up to now with Suneater, we've been talking about the thematic story of like, what is Hadrian's journey? What is this story about? You were mentioning of like, you really hope that Hadrian blowing up the sun is not just a trolley problem ultimately. Going like, well, duh. of course he does it. Hadrian has a good quote in here that I think really almost defines what the story is about. Of Rocchio telling us, what if Anakin becoming Darth Vader was a good thing? Mm-hmm. And the quote is this: the Emperor asks Hadrian, "How can we ever hope to prevail against such demons, I ask you?" And Hadrian responds, by being demons ourselves, sire." That is the story of Suneater and Hadrian Marlowe, kind of wrapped up into a quote.
Bye all.
Bye, everyone.